Kratz and Sean Keane joining us right now. Sean, great to see you, and welcome to your first time on the show. So, of course, this friendship, this beautiful friendship, is consummated by the article you put up on Sports Illustrated to talk about the city of San Francisco. And then AJ sent out a little, hey, what's up? Come on the show to talk about it. So let's do it right now. So let's get into it, man. First off, when did you catch the clip about our coverage of San Francisco and why some players have been a little bit hesitant to get recruited there?
I didn't realize you guys had a show until about a week ago, but I always like supporting former Giants catchers, legends from the backstops of San Francisco. But I think my editor sent me the clip because I both know the Giants in the area, but also I've spent some time in Rowdy Tellez's hometown of Elk Grove, California.
So you mentioned,
There
I
aren't a
think,
lot of
Buster.
Elks there.
Right. Well, I think you mentioned Buster Posey to start, right? So the Posey quote is, quote, something I think is noteworthy, something that unfortunately keeps popping up from players and even the players' wives, is there's a bit of uneasiness with the city itself as far as the state of the city with crime, with drugs. This is Posey's words. Whether that's all completely fair or not, perception is reality. It's a frustrating cycle, I think, and not just with baseball. Baseball is secondary to life and the important things of life. But as far as free agent pursuit goes, I've seen that it does affect things. So let's start here with A, your reaction to what Buster said, and B, at least unless you were totally kidding, your problem in the article with us asking other people like a player and an insider about the topic.
Well, it's not necessarily a player, but he was presented as a Bay Area native, and he has basically lived his whole life 100 miles away from San Francisco. I mean, he's from the Sacramento area, which is further away from San Francisco than Milwaukee is from Chicago. So I'm just not sure that he personally was the best person to have a take on the changes in San Francisco as a guy that didn't really live there and hasn't, he's been a baseball player for the last 10 years. So he hasn't really spent much time in San Francisco. It's funny that Buster Posey had the quotes about that too, because I'm sure that he has heard that from people because there is a lot of media perception of San Francisco. But Shohei, it's in the context of Shohei Ohtani signing with the Dodgers. And LA has more crime than San Francisco. LA has more homeless people than San Francisco. It's just bigger. So it's kind of an interesting thing that Dodger Stadium probably has the most violent parking lot in the major leagues, a place where there have been repeated stabbings and assaults. So I'm sure that there probably are people that don't like San Francisco in terms of free agents. I don't know how AJ liked it when he was there, but I just think that I'm sure that I don't think Buster said anything wrong, really, but I do think that there's somewhat of a kind of cover your ass mentality from ownership after falling short with Ohtani, because there was a lot of negative reaction from the fan base about that.
Okay, so we had Ken Rosenthal on, who's considered by many the best insider in baseball. He brought it up and said that one of the reasons is players have a hard time with it. Buster Posey, Giants legend, said when he's talked to free agents, it's come up. We asked Rowdy because, I mean, Sacramento is considered, I know I have friends in Sacramento, they consider themselves Bay Area. I know it's 100 miles, but it's kind of, it's like San Jose. San Jose is considered Bay Area, even though it's really not Bay Area, Oakland and San Fran. So we asked Rowdy, he gave his opinion. He grew up a Giants fan. He goes to San Francisco every year as a player. He talks to other players. Players talk to each other about this. And listen, I played in San Francisco almost 20 years ago now. The city was great when I was there. I mean, other than when I went in for my first press conference, I walk out of the door, there's a guy taking a shit on the sidewalk. I mean, other than that, listen, the weather sucked because it's freezing, but that going there. The ballpark was awesome. The organization was great. The reporters, some of them weren't so great. Fine, you deal with that part. But honestly, if you watch that whole clip, Scott and I said, listen, when I went to San Francisco, it was great. The city itself was great. But we have to understand is when players go in, they stay in certain areas, right? Which is centralized to where a lot of the, whatever you want to call it, homeless people, whatever you want to crime is reported on. So they see it. They don't see the Walnut Creeks. They don't see the places outside. If you go south of San Fran by the airport, there's all those nice areas and all the nice areas. They just see where basically the stuff is centralized. And so they get a misconception of what it's about. And when we asked Rowdy, again, a guy that goes there, plays there, he gave his opinion. we just wanted you to come on and without getting political, because this is not a political show, this is a baseball show,
Sure.
right? And explain, your side of it, because you took shots at me, you took shots at Scott. For me, I mean, I don't know how I came into the article. I was just sitting here listening, and you're talking about me allegedly kicking a dude in the nuts, which Stan Conti, he has come out publicly, and I've talked to Stan about it, denying it. So I'm glad you got your story wrong, but I'll tell you the real story one day if you want to hear it. But we just wanted you on to give your side of it, again, without getting political, and we want to explain where we're coming from, because we don't care where people sign. But when we hear this from numerous players, numerous reporters that are respected throughout the game, let's hear a Bay Area's guys' take. So here's your platform.
Well, I'm sure that I don't think San Francisco has solved a car burglary in the history of the city. I think they still have some covered wagon robberies from the 1850s that still haven't been picked up. But for the most part, I think you're right that it is centralized in the Tenderloin area. But perhaps that's because of where hotels are in San Francisco. But honestly, the crime rate's not as high as most other cities. And at the same time, it just feels like the Giants did sign a major free agent last year. They just failed his physical afterwards. So the idea that no big free agents are going to go to San Francisco with that is, I mean, Carlos Correa signed there for 13 years last season and was ready to go at a press conference until the Giants decided that they didn't like some old x-rays of his ankle injury. I mean, Buster Posey himself moved back. I don't think he's wrong that there is a general perception of that. I just think that is been exaggerated by the media. Now, I'm not trying to get political about that, but there was an organized recall of the district attorney, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but there definitely was a certain intentional campaign about presenting San Francisco as more dangerous than it actually is. Like, North Beach is still really nice. Like, anywhere that a player is going to actually live in San Francisco, there's almost no gang violence. The violent crime rate's very low. There is property crime and there is a homeless problem. But I don't know that that's necessarily different than it was 10 years ago and other times where they haven't had problems bringing people into San Francisco. I honestly think that the biggest problem in trying to get a really premium guy like Ohtani is that the team won 79 games last year and they won 81 games the year before. And it's not that they're a bad organization or it's a bad place to play, but I just think that the quality of the team is a much bigger factor than, whatever perception of crime that you're getting on the news. And again, not Fox News, any local news is going to exaggerate whatever the break-ins are, but San Francisco's got a really low, murder rate, gun violence. There's very little gang violence at all. And, I think that a couple of blocks in the Tenderloin are ending up being representative of the entire city. And I just don't think that that's correct. Now, that might be players' perception, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that that's an accurate picture of the city.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I will say, again, just to echo what AJ was saying, when this becomes a story because they didn't get Ohtani and because maybe they're missing out on some other players, and you're right, Carlos Correa did sign there and then they flunked the physical for him, but that's one player. If it's something that you're hearing in the game from players and from free agents, I will make the case that what we do on our show that's different from any national baseball show is actually bring a story like that to light and say, wait, hold up. Some players are saying they don't want to sign there. Some players' families are asking more questions about a team like this. And they're not the only ones, by the way. We spoke plenty about the Northeast for Ohtani and said, no fucking chance. He's not dealing with the media in Philadelphia, in New York, in Boston, right? And I mean, whether we were right or wrong on that in terms of the reasoning, I do think that's a factor that we always talk about. Tyler Glasnow talked about it on our show yesterday, going over the Dodgers, saying that he feels like it's better media vibes there. To me, that was referring to the Northeast. Our show also talks about Oakland and the A's situation more than any show. Book it. That's a fact. We talk about that situation more because it's bullshit that MLB took themselves out of Oakland and they're going to Vegas. Oakland, a massive market, one of the most diverse cities. So my point is, should we be getting more praise versus vitriol for bringing up stories like this? Because in my mind, I think it's important to have these conversations so that people can say, hold up. If player X, who's been to San Francisco many times and used to be a Giants fan, doesn't think this city's good, and he talks to many other players because he's a very popular player in our sport, people like you and others should come on our show and just speak out publicly and say, let me convince you why you're wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just had a problem with the perception of a guy that, again, Elk Grove is a lovely town. It's near Sacramento, but it's just not somebody who lived there. He even talked about taking Bart in to see games, and that is really like a 3-hour journey on public transportation. I'm not
He
saying he
didn't mean
didn't
from
do it or
there, though. I'll
anything.
just clarify that. He didn't mean from there, but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. No, but I just, it was more just that that's not the same city at all. They're close. They're 100 miles away, but it's like a 2.5 hour drive to get there. I just don't think he's the best person necessarily to talk about the changes in the city in the last 10 years. And, I think one of the problems that the Giants are having is that there's a lot of people who are working from home now since the pandemic. I don't know if it was quite like that when AJ was there in 2004, but that area just has a lot of bars and restaurants, and the Giants even have their own development that they've been starting that was near the parking lot, and they've gotten a little bit of I think probably a lack of attendance because they moved up the start times of games, but there's not as many people working in the immediate area of the stadium right now. I mean, that's probably going to change in the next couple of years, but I do think that some of the value of where the ballpark is located, from the convenience and how nice it looks and how much stuff is around there, they're not quite getting the same benefits because there just aren't as many people working at Soma. There's so many tech workers that are just allowed to either not come into the office at all or coming in like 2 days a week. And it is a little bit of a different vibe down there.
And I'll present some other cases because I think this part's important too, so that we can take some of the narrative. And here, I got this for you, necklace enthusiast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So some of the parts that I think are important to point out as well are, and we talked to Susan Slusser about this the other day, who's lived in the San Francisco area for a long time. Susan said, the weather's great. We disagreed on that. I will say, like, LA has you beat when they're recruiting players on weather for San Francisco.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of sweat a lot, but yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, but
right? I'm from New York.
Dude, I was a catcher. I was a catcher on the Giants. I was a catcher on the Giants, right?
Yeah.
It was August. I had to wear a freaking turtleneck the size of Chipper Jones in the middle of August because it was so damn cold, right? I'm like, when is the sun going to come out, right? But that's just the way. But you deal with that as a player, and it wasn't like Candlestick, which was much worse. But I mean, it was still chilly. So yeah, LA. Listen, it's hard to beat San Diego and LA for weather.
Well, also though, like, but a few other things, Sean. For example, the ballpark for pitchers, great. Some hitters definitely will say that's no secret. It's been one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks for years.
Barry Bonds ain't have no problem.
Barry Bonds is on another planet. So if all things are equal, and then even I'll disagree with you on the success because this is a team that really is the last legit dynasty, and it wasn't that long ago where they were winning a title every other year, and even 2 years ago they won 107 games. My thing is, in the really recent past, they have become a boring brand of baseball. And this is according to players on the team currently, like Ross Stripling, who we talk to all the time, writers like Susan the other day, and the fact that, like, in the second half of last season, they essentially have 2 starting pitchers. Most rotations have 5. They're deciding to dance around, do openers, do dual starters, do all kinds of shit that many players, if everything's equal, are like, I'm not going to be a part of that. If I start to struggle against lefties, they're going to platoon my ass way quicker. So stuff like that lead to, yes, a boring brand of baseball, less for a fan to kind of rally around in terms of a regular lineup. And that's Farhan Zaidi's kind of brand, which he brought over from the Dodgers. So I think that's a huge factor too. So I like to point out some of these other kind of extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if they're going to change with Bob Melvin in charge too, because it wasn't popular with fans at all. Especially when you get to see a lot of things when, Gabe Kapler was notorious for pinch hitting his cleanup hitter in the 5th inning because of a platoon difference with the pitcher, as if that guy was not going to hit again 2 innings later. I do think that maybe the stability of the organization people like, but you're going to just see that they're going to have to pay a premium to get hitters to go there. You see a lot of pitchers that want to come there, especially on those kind of 1-year team option deals, because the park is pretty pitching favorable, but the organization also seems like they have a good grasp on getting the max out of certain players, like getting Gausman to just start throwing his best pitch, 60% of the time instead of mixing it in. But I think you saw that with Jung-Ho Lee as well, that there's some estimates saying that they thought it was an overpay. It's like, well, that's just going to be something that's going to happen when they're getting free agent hitters. unless they're developing guys from the farm system, you're going to have to give some extra incentive to get a hitter to go there because you're just not going to hit as many home runs in that park. You're not going to hit for the same average in that park. And I mean, yeah, it's cold. It's really cold in July. There's one weekend at the end of August where it gets hot and everyone freaks out that the city has no air conditioning. And then it's back to 55-degree days for the next 5 months.
So did Buster Posey, did he hurt the Giants' chances by telling the truth that he has heard? Because you even said it, you know, he moved back after a year back in Georgia, but he lives in Lafayette. So
Yeah.
it's not San Francisco. Did he hurt the chances for the Giants? But also, if he didn't, like, who should speak up for the Giants? Who should be the one to speak on this in San Francisco?
You know, I don't think that Buster really said anything wrong. It gets overblown. I think people in San Francisco are a little sensitive about certain issues. Like there was a big deal about shoplifting at Walmart, not Walmart's, Walgreens, and you know, a couple months later, the CEO said that they kind of overblew that to talk about some other losses they had. But I mean, Posey's just an honest guy. I don't think he said anything that's incorrect necessarily, but I do think that in that particular situation, I don't really think that there was a chance of Ohtani coming there. So in that context, I mean, this is a free agent that didn't really seem like he was ever ready to leave Los Angeles. And the reports are coming out that the Giants weren't even one of the, 4 finalists. And maybe that was because of the neighborhoods and everything. But I think that for the most part, just the timing of it was a little weird. I don't think Buster has any. I mean, he can say what he wants. He's part of the ownership group. He's making decisions now. But yeah, I think some of that is that I think a lot of the players with families do live in Walnut Creek, Lafayette, and then some of the other guys will live, I think Hunter Pence used to take his scooter down to the Millennium Towers, and Tim Lincecum lived downtown. So it just, it depends on the guy. But I don't think Buster Posey has to apologize for anything in San Francisco for the rest of his life. He brought in 3 titles. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's pretty unimpeachable. If anyone's going to say something, Buster Posey is the guy with the most standing to do that, I think.
Okay, so I have to ask you, since
Yeah.
I asked you to come on. You said, can we talk about Doug Eddings, Billy Koch, and whether the Twins realized the A's were about to bat out of the order in the last inning? So where do we start? Do you want to start with Doug Eddings?
Yes.
Do you want to start with Billy Koch? Or do we want to
talk
start
about
with how we ended all those A's dreams in Moneyball,
Yes.
and I don't get royalties from that stupid fucking movie?
It's ridiculous. It's criminal. So I think, basically, I was a fan of yours when you were on the Giants, but in 2002, watching those A's, it was a real heartbreaking postseason for Bay Area fans. So what was that like? Did you feel like you were facing a team of destiny after the streak and everything? Or that just doesn't even
because we also
factor
ended
in,
the
right?
streak, so we fucked them there. We ended that dumb shit. They came to the Metrodome, bye-bye streak, okay? And then we go into that playoffs. Nobody gave us a chance. They had Hudson, Mulder, Zito, right?
Mm-hmm.
They screwed up. They should have started Zito or Mulder game 1. They started Tim Hudson. We beat him twice, right? And then we got Zito. Zito beat us in game 3. We beat Mulder in game 5. So Art Howe, who was the manager at the time, he should have pitched Mulder because we were all lefties. So he pitched Hudson twice, game 1, game 5, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, or game 1, game 4, we're like, oh, thank you, God, we get a righty. Right. So, and I played for Art Howe in Japan in 2002. We talked about it. And then the Billy Koch thing in the 9th inning, we had a 1-run lead. I hit a 2-run homer off of him to give us a 3-run lead. And then we ended up winning by 1 because David Ortiz, people forget, David Ortiz actually got a hit later on in that inning because Art Howe forgot to bring in the lefty. We had warming up. He had basically given up. Ortiz gets a hit. We go up by 4. Mark Ellis, it's a 3-run homer. And, that's how Moneyball ends, even though they don't even show that, which is still horseshit. But we actually thought we were a better team, and we lost to the Angels in the CS, who went on to beat the Giants that year. Obviously, we actually thought we were the team of destiny because we were supposed to be contracted. We were supposed to go away, and then we were like, "Screw this, we're going to win the whole fucking thing," and we ended up losing to the Angels.
Yeah. Now, and there's a legend that Ray Durham almost batted out of order in the bottom of the 9th after the Mark Ellis homer. Was that something that anyone noticed on the field?
No, because he actually, if you remember, he came up and there were people all over the bases and he popped up. And we had Eddie Guardado, who was a Bay Area native from Stockton. Is that considered the Bay Area? I don't know if that's close enough.
Yeah, close enough. It's
okay.
General,
it's like Elk Grove. It's close enough. But he couldn't. He was like so nervous he couldn't get anybody out. And that guy had saved like 50 games for us that year, 40-something games, and he couldn't get anybody out. We're like, gosh, how are we going to get him through? And luckily, Oakland has the giant foul territory, and Denny Hawking ran over and caught the ball from Ray Durham. But yeah, I mean, it was nerve-wracking. But listen, it's one of my favorite memories of all time because they made a movie about us. Oh wait, no, that was about the team that lost.
Well, you guys could actually get free soda in your own clubhouse too. You didn't have to pay for it.
That's true. That is true. That is true. So, go ahead, Sean, because I have one last question before you go.
Okay. No, go ahead. Go ahead and ask a question.
So, is it an insult or a
Compliment?
A compliment, I guess, that you called Scott a necklace enthusiast because he wears necklaces and he offered me a couple today because we were all going to be necklace enthusiasts.
And almost every pro athlete wears one at this point. Baseball, basketball, football.
Even football, which I don't know
can't
how
speak for hockey as much. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see how you do it in football, honestly. And look, it looks good. I wasn't feeling. I guess I was being a little bit of an asshole there, and I'm sorry for doing that because you know what, you're looking good in that. I can't pull off a necklace. There was a brief time in my life where I wore a puka shell necklace, and horribly embarrassing. All those photos are around permanently, but I think that. Did you ever go through a phase where you wore one of those magnetic necklaces that was supposed to balance your body rhythms or anything like that? I think they finally got sued for that.
The iron stuff or whatever.
The titanium
fighting.
No.
No. I was like, total scam. Even when I was a kid, I was like, this is a scam to the other kids.
Dustin Hermanson, Giants legend with me.
He was part of that?
He had like 7 fightings on when we were playing with the White Sox. And he couldn't pitch, but he could play golf. And I'm like, how I know fighting doesn't work? Because he wears fighting arm sleeves, fighting underwear, fighting necklaces, and he can't pitch, but he can play golf. I'm like, apparently he needs to put them all over his arm because, but he says back hurt. Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, good. Sean, if there's one thing we solved, then me and basically every other pro athlete.
Yes.
Sean, thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming on,
dude.
Seriously, thank you for coming on, standing up for yourself. Thank you. We really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.